Hello there, and welcome to the weekly Outside Views magazine on British politics. Germany and France recently agreed on an armaments project, and now three more G7 countries are announcing a cooperation. Great Britain, Japan, and Italy want to jointly develop a new combat aircraft. The jet is scheduled to be operational by 2035. As the government in London announced on Friday, the G7 partners want to adapt and react to future security threats with this, what they call, unprecedented international aerospace coalition. The aim is a decisive change in air power and defense capability through a new generation of fighter jets. The aircraft should be compatible with the machines of other NATO partners and eventually replace the Royal Air Force's Eurofighter Typhoon jets. There was initially no information on the amount of the investment. And as I said, Germany and France only recently agreed on the FCAS armaments project, with which an air combat system worth billions is to be developed. The alliance with Italy and Japan makes it clear that the security of the Euro-Atlantic and Indo-Pacific regions are closely linked, said British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak. He wanted to officially start the first phase of the Global Combat Air Programme, the GCAP, that's what they call the project, when he visited Coningsby Air Force Base in eastern England. A capability network with unmanned aircraft, advanced sensors, state-of-the-art weapons, and innovative data systems is planned. The cooperation allows the expertise and costs to be shared. This should also create highly qualified jobs in all three countries. It is expected that other states will also participate. Never before have so many people in Great Britain died as a result of their alcohol consumption as in 2021, and the reason is the corona pandemic. And particularly often affected are men. In the UK, more people than ever have died from the effects of heavy drinking in 2021. This is probably due to the corona pandemic, while the heavy drinker consumed even more alcohol than usual. That was said by the British Statistics Authority, ONS. The deaths of 9,641 people in the UK could be directly linked to alcohol, and that is a good quarter more than in 2019, the last full year before the pandemic. After the number of deaths had been stable for years, they rose significantly in 2020 and again by around 7.4% in 2021. The trend was expected by researchers. In the summer, a study by the University of Sheffield showed that people who had previously consumed risky amounts in particular drank more during the period of corona lockdowns and the contact restrictions. These statistics are absolutely devastating. Behind every number lies an individual family tragedy, said Karen Tyrrell of the BBC's Drink Aware organization. It is unacceptable that in one of the richest countries in the world, the rate of alcohol-related deaths among men in the poorest areas was 4 times higher than in the wealthiest. Among other things, activists are calling for a significant increase in the alcohol tax. Most people died in Scotland, where the rate was 22.4 alcohol-related deaths per 100,000 inhabitants. In England, the largest part of the country, it was the least, with 13.9%. Liver disease was by far the most common cause of death, and men are twice as likely to die as a result of their alcohol consumption as women. Great Britain wants to use the military for medical trips and border checks in the face of the strong wave of strikes going on already in the UK. The army will step in to take on particularly important tasks. That's what a spokesman for Prime Minister Rishi Sunak said last week. Home Secretary Suella Braverman warned against air travel over the Christmas holidays. Immigration officers had earlier voted to join a slew of professional groups and go on strike in the face of high inflation. If they continue with these strikes, there will be undeniably serious disruption to many thousands of people who have vacation plans, Braverman said. According to the authorities, 2,000 soldiers are currently being trained for border protection. In the health sector, nursing staff had already voted to go on strike. And now the ambulance drivers are also added. According to the government, the Ministry of Defense is in talks with the NHS Health Authority about this. Oil industry workers also went on strike last week. In Scotland, teachers are on strike and more school workers could soon follow. The wave of strikes in Great Britain, which has been going on for months, is unprecedented in decades. All sectors are affected: postal workers, civil servants, security guards, even employees of an NGO that helps the homeless for fear of becoming homeless themselves. The mobilization of unions in the transport sector is particularly strong. Railway employees, employees of the London Underground, bus drivers, airport employees, and others all went on strike. Prime Minister Sunak's spokesman complained that the strikes brought disruptions to everyone. The government continues to refuse to support inflation compensating wage increases. Instead, Sunak had indicated that strikes in key areas could be banned in the future. So far, only the police, military, and prison guards are not allowed to go on strike. And Health Secretary Gillian Keegan told the BBC that a ban on strikes might also be introduced for the health sector. In view of the strikes in Scotland, forbidding teachers to go on strike is also conceivable. Almost 3 years after Brexit, the London financial sector is to be given new freedom according to plans by the British government. Finance Minister or Chancellor of the Exchequer Jeremy Hunt presented a far-reaching package of measures in Edinburgh in Scotland, which envisages various deregulations for banks. According to Hunt, the changes, they adopt the Edinburgh reforms, are intended to exploit new Brexit freedoms, abolish bureaucracy, and boost economic growth. The sector also wants to open up more to cryptocurrencies, and caps on banker bonuses are removed. Among other things, rules are to be abolished that were introduced in 2008 as security mechanisms after the financial crisis and obliged banks to separate riskier investments from other activities. However, Hunt stressed that the banks are in a very different situation today than they were then, and he is dismissing critics' claims that the government was jeopardizing the security of the system. The Confederation of British Industry Trade Association and representatives of the London banking industry, of course, welcomed the announcement. The opposition accused Hunt of taking too many risks shortly after ex-Prime Minister Liz Truss' disastrous economic policy. For this to happen after the Tories have led our economy to the abyss is beyond misplaced, said finance industry specialist MP Tulip Siddiq. The City of London has been Europe's leading financial district, but that has changed with Brexit. Centres such as Amsterdam, Paris and Frankfurt compete with the British capital. Since my last video, German Foreign Minister Annalena Baerbock has called on the British government to back down in the dispute with the EU over Brexit rules for Northern Ireland. I think there's a window of opportunity for a pragmatic solution right now, said Baerbock in a video message recorded on the government plane to the so-called Königswinter conference of the German-British Society in London, although she never arrived there due to snow. The Green politician called on London to implement the so-called Northern Ireland Protocol and to respond to the pragmatic EU proposal that is on the table for a long time, I have to say. The dispute between Brussels and London over the so-called Northern Ireland Protocol is currently paralyzing the formation of a government in the northern part of the Emerald Isle. The protocol is part of the Brexit Treaty concluded at the end of 2019 and is intended to ensure that despite the British exit from the EU between Northern Ireland and the EU member Ireland, no border checks will be necessary. This is to prevent the parts of the advocates of the unification with Ireland from taking up arms again in the former Civil War region. Instead, however, a goods checks border has now emerged between Northern Ireland and the rest of the UK, and that is opposed by parts of the Unionist population. In her message, Baerbock also praised Britain's cooperation with Germany and other Western partners in the face of the Ukraine war. They have moved closer together to defend values such as freedom and democracy. This also shows that the similarities are greater than the differences. Let's build on this solidarity, appealed the minister, who actually wanted to meet her British counterpart James Cleverly in London and take part in the conference. But however, a sudden onset of winter in Dublin, where she was previously travelling, prevented the visit. At the airport in the Irish capital, Baerbock and her delegation had to wait 4.5 hours for departure on Friday after the onset of winter because the government Airbus had to be de-iced. So in the evening they went directly back to Berlin instead of London. Ice and snow have now prevented her from standing on the stage with her counterpart in London, said Baerbock regretfully in her message. However, the relationship between Germany and Great Britain would by no means be frosty. Rather, they want to strengthen the partnership and sign an agreement for closer civil society exchange between the two countries as soon as possible. Well, that should actually have taken place on their meeting there. Baerbock's visit to London has been postponed for the third time now. The first appointment fell victim to the British government crisis surrounding the resignation of then Prime Minister Boris Johnson in the summer. The strategy dialogue had to be postponed a second time due to the death of Queen Elizabeth II in September. According to the Chambers of Commerce Association BCC, the British economy has a long way to go before it recovers. The association expects the recession to last another 5 quarters. Growth is not expected until the end of 2023, and in 2024 there will only be an anemic recovery. That's how the British Chambers of Commerce announced it on Friday night last week. Investments, exports, and private consumption are expected to remain subdued. The Bank of England had previously warned of a long-lasting recession. The BCC expects the economy to shrink by 1.3% in the coming year. Household spending would fall significantly due to rising energy costs and mortgage payments, as well as falling real wages. Added to this are the poor prospects for the global economy in the wake of Russia's war of aggression against Ukraine, it said. For 2024, they then expect growth of 0.7%, and this is significantly less than estimated by the OBR Supervisory Authority. And I want to add some point because of the Ukrainian war of aggression that is not directly linked to Britain, but Britain and the rest of continental Europe are standing side by side because of the war of aggression in Ukraine. Yesterday, so from the point of view when I'm filming this, the last city council session here in my hometown of the year has taken place. And it started with a bill that was proposed by all factions, all major factions in the council together. And it was about a solidarity partnership with the Ukrainian city of Vinnytsia. Lublin is a German is the partner city of my hometown Münster in Poland, and Lublin and Münster together are working with Vinnytsia to get help there. Vinnytsia was also attacked by Russian drones and missiles on November 14th, and a lot of people were hurt and a lot of infrastructure was destroyed. And so my hometown is helping there. And at the evening, during the council session, it was finally possible to get a video link to Lublin, that's usually possible, but also to the mayor of Vinnytsia. And he followed our session live when the new Solidarity Pact was agreed to and the bill was passed. And it was very moving to hear it firsthand from a person my city is working with, what is going on in Ukraine. And that, with all the criticism I have on the UK, on my UK channel, or once a week here on this channel, it is absolutely important that my home country of Germany and Great Britain and the rest of Europe stand together on the side of Ukraine and the help they are getting there. And this first-hand experience of last night was reminding me even more how important that is, and why I keep talking about this on all of my channels regularly, to keep that in the minds of the people. Because the war is going on for almost a year now. You can't even imagine that. I just realized it's 10 months already. In a few days, it will be 10 months. And people tend to forget about a war even at their doorstep when it's going on for a long time. And we must not forget what is going on there. There's an illegal war of aggression against a European state. Who would have expected any of us to say this in public again in our lifetime? But I got distracted from the topic of this magazine, but I wanted to pass on this information to you as well, because it was a very moving session yesterday, and I want you to take part in this as well. And I'll see you in my next video. I'll be back.